throughout the Roman Empire, everyone will honor Caesar. Everyone will worship Caesar. Caesar is Lord. In each town and city, there will be a monument to the reigning Caesar. And when a new Caesar comes into power, all money, all coinage will be reprinted with the image of the emperor. All people throughout the empire will pay a head tax to Rome, to Caesar, for the privilege of being part of his empire. Do you like that? Did you like that? You had to worship the emperor. Caesar is Lord. Everyone had to say that. Here you are, a Jew, like Jesus, like Mary, like the apostles, in a little country, a small country, not powerful at all, and you are the chosen people, and you worship the one God. You worship God alone. The first commandment, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods beside me. There should be no engraven images. That is against the first commandment. You shall worship the Lord your God, who has chosen you from among all the peoples of the earth to be his own, and from you will come the Messiah. Can you imagine what it was like at the time of Jesus to be a Jew captive in the Roman Empire with no political freedom? And to be assured of that, the Romans had garrisons of soldiers in all the main port cities, and especially in Jerusalem, and they appointed a puppet king, Herod. Now, this gospel, paying this tax to Caesar, is it lawful? You've got two groups here who want to get rid of Jesus. They want to discredit him. You have the Pharisees and the Herodians. Now, you hear the word Herodian, you can hear the King Herod, Herodian. So the Pharisees, and I'd be on their side, they wanted the Romans out. They wanted political and religious freedom. I'd be all for it. The Herodians, King Herod's, they sided with King Herod to keep the things as the status quo. They didn't want things to change. And the Herodians and the Pharisees were enemies. But they came together this morning to get rid of this rabbi from Nazareth, this carpenter, because, I'll tell you why, in my opinion, jealousy. They were so jealous. They were so jealous of his popularity. They absolutely wanted to get rid of him, to get him out of there. And so they had this plot. They had this plot. If he said, pay the tax, then all of his people would be angry with him because they didn't want to pay it to Caesar. If he said, don't pay the tax, then the Roman legions could arrest him and eliminate him. It was a perfect trap. Now, what does he do? He said, show me the coin. Can you imagine? The Pharisees and the Herodians in the temple area, the most sacred place for Judaism, they had Roman coins in their pocket. And they pulled it out, and you look, and there you have the image of Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine Augustus Caesar, it says. Son of the divine Augustus Caesar. Why would you have that? That's against the first commandment. And so just by showing the coin, they discredited themselves. They discredited themselves. And Jesus gives us this great teaching. Give back to Caesar what belongs to him, but give to God what belongs to God. Now, I'm going to interrupt myself here now. I'm not done, but I'm going to have Gertrude Hammond come up now. And if you could she's our wonderful director of religious formation, just to call out the names of our candidates for confirmation.
Thank you, Father Cole. I'm truly blessed to be permitted to serve the parish with children, youth, and families. And this morning, we have our candidates for confirmation and their sponsors here in the church. Confirmation is next Sunday at 10:30 Mass. Father Cole has asked me to ask each candidate, when I call your name, if you would please stand. Catherine Archambault, Evelyn Argue, Samuel Bonner, Bodie Boston, Caitlin Carpenter, Sarah Carpenter, Rosemary Carpenter, Emily Carpenter, Nathaniel Charity, Reed Demain, Abigail DeRoche, Luke DeRoche, Emma Doyle, Joshua Gibbs, Kayla Graffam, William Hammond, Hannah Irving, Samantha Johnson, Maggie Kerwin, Sabrina Cradaville, Marissa Labrie, Carolyn Luby, Carissa Messina, Jonah Nimorowski, Charlotte Noble, Sarah Peternell, Samantha Sexton, Serena Silva, Isabella Sorrentino, Samuel Thurston, Emma Vignola, and we welcome from St. Anthony's Parish in San Bornville, John Williams. These young men and women will be presented to the bishop next weekend for the sacrament of confirmation, to be strengthened with the gifts of the Spirit. And there are families, all of us. We brought them here at baptism, and they've been on that journey since then. When you leave Mass this morning, I invite you. Their photographs are on a banner in the narthex, and their names are below them in a basket. I invite you to please take the name of one of these young people and pray for them as they celebrate the sacrament next week, but not only then, as the gifts that they're strengthened in the Spirit bind them more closely to Christ and to discipleship and faith. Thank you, Father Cole.
Okay. So what a good-looking class. Let's just thank God for them. Wonderful. All right. Good. Okay. All right. So we'll be praying for you, especially this week, okay? So be seated now. So here's the thing. What does the Catholic Church teach? It teaches that we have dual citizenship. Did you know that? We have dual citizenship. And so I have my American passport here, my United States passport. And I'm happy to say that it's good until 2023. Doesn't that make me feel good? And also, this is another passport. This is my baptismal certificate. And it has no expiration date on it. It goes forever. It goes into eternity, into timelessness. So the church teaches that we got one foot in this world. We're citizens of the world, citizens of the United States in our case, and citizens of the kingdom of God, both at the same time, okay? And in the documents of Vatican II, we are the church in the modern world, and we are to be involved in the church in the modern world. We are to be good citizens. Now you're going to notice that we have an American flag outside the church, but we don't have an American flag in the worship area here, in the tabernacle area or in the altar area. You know why? Because the first commandment from Judaism, we worship God alone. No one else. We do not worship our country. We worship God alone. And it's one nation under God. We got that from Ike, like David Eisenhower in the 1950s. See? So you keep God first, and then you become good citizens, good patriotic citizens. And so we're supposed to be involved in our communities, in our nation, in the world, bringing the gospel to the world. At the same time, knowing that we are permanent citizens of the kingdom of God. I encourage you, and I know you've already turned in your baptismal certificates. Find the date of your baptism. You know your birthday, but mine was December the 30th. That's a big day for me. December the 30th is when I was baptized, officially proclaimed as God's child, and given the promise of sharing in the life of Christ, including the cross and the resurrection, and giving the inheritance of heaven. All of that happened at baptism. Proclaimed God's beloved child. Get your baptismal certificate and celebrate not just your birthday, but celebrate your baptismal day. It really is. You're dual citizens, okay? So we want to be good citizens of our country and our community and our state, and wonderful citizens of the kingdom. We're supposed to be lights in the world, and especially once you're confirmed, to bring the light of Christ into society. Do that. Get involved. It's so important. I got to tell you, folks, do you know in the last election what percentage of our citizens in this country did not even vote? Anybody know? I'll tell you. 42% stayed home. That's terrible. That's not being good citizens. We're supposed to love our country and be involved in our country and be lights to our country. So you can when you're able to vote, make sure you study the issues and the candidates, get involved, but vote, get out there and be a good citizen. It's important. We're supposed to do that, especially as Catholics. Get right involved. Be a light. I'm going to give you two examples. Do you know that in the Roman Empire, there were no hospitals, there were no nursing homes, there were no orphanages. Nobody cared about the sick or the poor. Nobody cared about it. Do you know who gave the world hospitals and nursing homes and care for the sick and care for orphans? Do you know who did that? The early Christians. The early Christians. We did that. The Catholic Church did that. The Orthodox Church did that. We can thank medicine and care for the sick and care for the abandoned and lonely. We did that. That's part of our history. So there we are, being a light. See, we're in the kingdom of God, but we bring that light to the secular world, to the civil world, the civic world. And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to influence society like salt of the earth or light in the darkness. Just a little bit of salt can flavor the food, so a little bit of faith can flavor society. Now, how many of you, I'm going to ask you to put your hands up, go to a public school? Okay? All right. Do you know who gave us public schools? Who said we want not just a few special kids, we want everybody to get an education. Do you know who gave us that? Protestant Christians. That came from believing, faithful Protestant Christians. And a great contribution. And it's spread all over the world now, that we have public schools. That's the kingdom of God influencing this world. So they're not separate, okay? They're not separate. Be a good citizen and be a better member of the kingdom. This doesn't have an expiration date. This goes on forever, okay? Good.